Bolliger Mabillard is one of the best roller coaster manufacturers out there. Some enthusiasts criticize them for being safe and repetitive, but parks love their rides. They are pricey, but they're super reliable and high capacity rides, and they're usually quite good too. They introduced the inverted coaster, and their older ones are particularly forceful. Then I also love the sustained floater airtime their hypercoasters offer, the speed their Giga coasters offer, the positive G's of their loopers, and the floaty elements on their wing coasters. So in this video, I will rank my top 50 favorite B&M roller coasters. Even going with this many coasters, there were still some notable ones that had to be excluded. Most coasters from this company have been at minimum good, so this was a hard one to make. Before starting the list, I have a few notes. First, I have not been to China, South Korea, or Vietnam, which is why none of those coasters will be featured on this list. Second, there are 3 other notable B&Ms I have not yet experienced that had a shot to make this list. Monster at Gronalund, Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and Valkyria at Liseberg. 3. I have reviews for many of these coasters, including everything in the top 13 if you want more in-depth thoughts. 4. This company's coasters are usually very comfortable. To avoid sounding repetitive, assume each coaster on this list is smooth unless otherwise noted. Starting off the list at number 50 is Riddler's Revenge at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is easily the best stand-up coaster. Not only is it the largest, but it's considerably smoother than most of the others. That's a good thing because this ride is intense. The inversions and valleys pummel you with positive G's and try to drive your body through the floor. I know that sensation's not for everyone, especially with a ride as long as this, but I love the show of power. Number 49, X-Flight at Six Flags Great America. This is an underrated wing coaster. This one beautifully alternates between positive and negative G's. You often lift out of your seat atop the inversions. I especially love the inline twist because you hang out of your seat for several seconds while also piercing through a control tower. Then the valleys and helixes hit you with good G's. Number 48, Thunderbird at Holiday World. This launched wing coaster starts off with a memorable LSM launch. It has some underrated power to it. Then the layout soars through the woods. The first half is decent with the bigger elements and holds a speed better than most wing coasters, but I absolutely love the second half. You have 2 floaty inversions, including that drawn-out inline twist through the barn. The hang time is fantastic. Number 47, Baron 1898 at Efteling. This is the best themed dive coaster. The experience starts with an excellent pre-show and a dark ride scene that establishes the story. Then you jump into the coaster section. This is one of the smaller dive machines, but I do like the elements. You have a really good drop, plenty of airtime, and it goes into a misty tunnel. The implement is just okay, but I love the flow of the 0G roll, the force in the helix, and the airtime in the final bunny hill. Number 46, Raptor at Cedar Point. This iconic invert has a lot of power. The inversions are all quite snappy. Several in the first half hit you with good positive G's, and I particularly love the ferocity which you whip through the Cobra roll and the 0G roll. Then the return run is solid as well when the brakes don't hit too hard. The one downside with this invert is that it has a bit more headbanging than the others on this list. It's also worth noting I haven't been on Monster at Walligator Park, but it's a near clone of Raptor. Number 45, Val Raven at Cedar Point. I know people like to make fun of this ride, but it's actually a pretty good dive coaster. The views of the peninsula at the start are breathtaking. Then you have one of the more complete layouts for the genre. The drops have oodles of floater airtime. I prefer the original restraints, but you still get plenty of negative G's even with those vests. The valleys and first 2 inversions have lovely positive G's, then the 0G winder has hang time to contrast. Number 44, SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa. This giant dive coaster starts off with a vertical plunge chock full of floater airtime. Then the first half also hits you with positive G's, rising into that Illman, and also the big turn into the mid-course brake run. The second half kicks things off with another steep plunge with good floater airtime, and a fun near miss, but the end sort of just fizzles out. Number 43, Silver Bullet at Knott's Berry Farm. This inverted coaster starts off with an embarrassment of a first drop. I know ramps that are steeper, but honestly I love everything that follows. The vertical loop has some really good force to it. The funky wave turn offers some neat views and a pinch of weightlessness. The Cobra Roll is pretty good too, and then the finale really picks things up. You have a floaty 0G roll, 2 decently snappy corkscrews, and an extremely forceful helix over the water. I love the sequencing, and this one has seemed to get better with age. Number 42, Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando. This Floorless coaster recently got a new coat of paint, but it runs just as well as it ever did. I really like the layout. You have the big inversions in the first half. Most have decent force, then the 0G roll is the standout per usual since it inverts you so rapidly. Then the second half plows through trenches while also throwing in 2 more inversions. Number 41, Medusa at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This ride is very similar to Kraken, but just replaced the second loop with another corkscrew. I think Medusa has a bit more power, and I definitely prefer the first drop in this one. It has some solid airtime in the back row. Number 40, Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. This big wing coaster is wonderful if you appreciate floaty elements. You levitate out of your seat atop the dive drop and later on the corkscrew. Then you get some nice airtime in the giant camelback. And the 2 rolls over the entrance not only offer hang time, but they have some terrifying near misses. The only real spot with notable positive G's is the base of the dive drop, but that's fine because the elements mostly work as is. The only con with this coaster for me is that it has a rather lackluster and tame helix finale. Number 39, Flight Deck at California's Great America. This invert ends too quickly, but everything before that is fantastic. This ride has some serious bite. The 3 inversions are very forceful. Then you also have 2 intense helixes. Everyone talks about the one at the end over the water, and rightfully so, but the one earlier in the ride may have even more power to it. That's the one that usually causes me to gray out. Number 38, Batman the Ride. The original B&M invert has been cloned several times, and I get why. It packs a lot of thrills into a minimal footprint. You hurtle through all 5 inversions, and the turns are forceful too. So don't be surprised if all the blood rushes to your feet. All of them are fun, but some run better than others. The 3 that stand out to me are Six Flags Over Georgia's Batman, Six Flags Magic Mountain's Batman, and Laurent's Vampire. This placement reflects those 3 specifically. Number 37, the Incredible Hulk coaster at Islands of Adventure. This has to be one of the best starts of any B&M. It starts with a shockingly punchy uphill launch. Then the first 4 inversions are a blur. You have a snappy 0G roll, a Cobra roll that always causes me to gray out from the sustained Gs, and a big vertical loop. Then later in the ride, you have 2 good corkscrews, plus another vertical loop. The one downside with this layout is it sort of fizzles out right at the end, but the refurb Universal performed in Hulk made it smoother than ever, and gave it a sweet onboard soundtrack. Number 36, Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This dive machine starts with the same great start as SheiKra. The hypersized drop is good floater airtime, and then you're slammed with positive Gs on the Immelman. But this one has a much better second half. There's another sizable drop with good airtime. You then have another Immelman and some extra pops of airtime in the bunny hills back to the station. Number 35, Hollywood Dream at Universal Studios Japan. I need to add the caveat that I have not ridden this mega coaster in the best seats. This park is strict assigned seating, and I was placed in the middle every single time. The layout is one camelback after another. I got decent floater airtime in the return run, but I've heard from others the airtime was most prominent in the back rows. I still can enjoy the visuals and great onboard audio, with the airtime I did get though. It is also worth noting this one has one train that rides backwards. I suspect that would be amazing getting all that floater airtime being pulled down the drops. Number 34, Great Bear at Hershey Park. I'm still impressed B&M found a way to cram this invert where they did. The first half is plopped on a narrow strip of land, and the return run goes next to a creek that B&M could not put any supports in. This creates some fun visuals, and the layout has great force too. The unconventional helix at the start will get your legs tingling. Then the drop offers some float. The first two inversions offer the positive G's, and the final two are snappy. The one downside with this coaster is that the final stretch ends on a whimper as you meekly climb back up the hill. Number 33, Dragon Con at Port Aventura. This iconic sit-down looper once opened with the most inversions of any coaster in the world, and it has a very similar layout to the aforementioned Kraken, just with an added corkscrew and a bit more power. The inversions have good force or snap, with the highlight being the insane 0G roll. The train is violently pushed through it, inducing wicked laterals for all. Number 32, Banshee at Kings Island. I previously made a review after my 2020 rides calling it the roughest invert. Thankfully, it ran much smoother in 2021. When it runs like that, it's a pretty good looper. You have immense size and speed. Several inversions, and particularly the valleys, pile on the positives. Then you have two floaty inversions with a big 0G roll and that hang time filled inline twist later in the ride. I just hope it never runs like it did in 2020 again. Number 31, Superman Krypton Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. This is the best floorless coaster out there. The setting plays a big role in that. This ride climbs above the quarry wall at two distinct points, and I love when you dive off of it. Then you have 6 good inversions as well as a mid-course brake run that's disabled, so the pacing is strong start to finish. While you can find more forceful loopers out there, particularly when it comes to inverts, you won't find a better floorless coaster, especially when you take into consideration the visuals. Number 30, Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America. In the front row, this ride may not even make the list, but the back row is awesome. This ride is a twister layout, and it's not as heavy on the airtime hills as the other hypers, but there are a handful of drops with borderline flagector airtime further back in the train. The first drop stands out most. You get a powerful pop followed by strong sustained floater the whole way down. Number 29, Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This company's original hypercoaster's airtime is not as strong as their newer hypers, but it's still very sustained at least. That's especially true in the back row on the first drop and the plunge into the far turnaround. This may have the best setting of any of their hypers as it runs through the woods and drops down to the water at several points. This makes it especially sweet at night because you can't see a thing. Number 28, Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is another early hyper whose airtime is not as strong as the later ones, but every Camelback and Bunny Hill still manages to offer solid floater airtime that's sustained. This is another long ride with an excellent setting in the woods, and this is a guilty pleasure of mine during holiday in the park. This New Jersey park ignores all temperature limits, and I've ridden this in sub-freezing conditions many times. The cold feels like it'll rip your face off, and if you're lucky, the mid-course trim may be disabled, leading to some super strong airtime in the final hills. Number 27, Afterburn at Carowinds. This may be the most underrated inverted coaster in the US. This is one of the larger inverts not to feature a mid-course brake run, so the pacing is really good. You go from inversion to inversion, and each one packs a mighty punch. I particularly love the intensity of the Batwing as you dive into the subterranean trench. Number 26, Diamondback at Kings Island. This ride is a similarly great setting to Nitro as it goes way out into the woods, but the outward leg is far more power. You get some extreme floater airtime no matter where you're sitting on those first few hills. These valleys have had a very noticeable rattle though. The ride does dial it back after the mid-course, but you still get some solid floater airtime on the later hills. Number 25, Intimidator at Carowinds. The first half has some of the best airtime of any B&M hyper. You get very strong sustained floater airtime if you're on the ends of the train. You'll be pushed against the clamshell restraints for a good few seconds going over each hill. There are 2 downsides though. One, this one has a pretty boring setting compared to the others running next to a big parking lot. 2, the final helix is pretty weak. Number 24, Manta at SeaWorld Orlando and Acrobat at Nagashima Spa Land. These are 2 very good flying coasters. Both have a really nice mix of inversions. The powerful pretzel loop steals the show as always. but you also have some forceful valleys and graceful inversions for variety. Then these rides are well integrated into their respective parks for fun visuals, especially Manta with the landscaping. Number 23, Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This invert starts as strong as any. The supersized spiraling drop offers insane speed and Gs. Then those positives are maintained on the first 4 inversions in each valley. I especially love the extremely snappy Cobra roll. The snaps in and out of it are downright violent. The mid-course does take away a lot of speed, but the 0G roll and final corkscrew still offer some whip, and the visuals remain great start to finish between the trees and snow theming. Number 22, Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland. This is the world's best dive coaster. It has the size, that colossal drop has the airtime you'd expect, plus a cool view plunging into an underwater tunnel. But this one has way more power than the others. The pullout and Immelman have strong positives per usual, but the coaster then throws 3 more inversions at you in a row. You have lots of hang time on this giant 0G winder, sustained Gs in the vertical loop, and another dose of positives on the second Immelman. The finale lets its foot off the gas a little bit, but you still get some floater airtime in the last drop, and a visually cool helix. Number 21, Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is America's most forceful flying coaster. Everything builds up to that colossal pretzel loop. It is one of the most intense elements in the world as you dive on your back and are subjected to crushing positive Gs. The rest of this coaster showcases its height as it's built on the hill. You get some stunning views of the park and surroundings while also gracefully flipping through the air. Number 20, Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa. If you want power, this is the ride for you. This sit-down coaster is an eerily similar layout to Dragon Con, just with one less loop. But I think this one is considerably stronger. The big inversions offer more positives, and the final ones are snappier. The 0G roll is identical, and that's most certainly a good thing. The blend of laterals, whip, and hang time is tenacious. And all these elements are plussed by some lush landscaping around the attraction, which hides what comes next. Number 19, Dragon Challenge at Islands of Adventure. Gone, but not forgotten. These dueling inverts deserved a better fate. The near misses between the two when it ran as dueling dragons were unmatched by any other B&M. Then you had strong elements as well. Fire had some of the most forceful Immelmans you'll find anywhere, plus a floater airtime filled camelback. Ice had snappier inversions in my opinion, particularly in that tight 0G roll and the aggressive Cobra roll. Number 18, Black Mamba at Phantasialand. This is one of the company's best themed coasters. This German park's heightened noise restrictions caused them to get creative. Much of this ride is concealed by a hotel and built underground. This hides what comes next and causes some shocking near misses. Then the layout is sneaky forceful too. The inversions are all quite good, particularly towards the back of the train, and the turns in the second half keep hitting you with Gs as well. Number 17, Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. This ride is very similar to Intimidator at Carowinds, with a superior finale. The first half is a great first drop, and several camelbacks offer negative Gs in droves. Then the finale has a better helix, plus a few additional pops of airtime before hitting the brakes. I think the airtime is best towards the back, but some of the valleys are a bit rattly back there. Number 16, Flug der Damen at Heide Park. This is the king of the wing coasters for me. It does so many things well. I especially love this coaster's use of terrain that allows it to keep the pace right up until the end as you drop further and further down the hill. This is great because the inversions are the best of the genre. The wing over drop has some hang time before whipping you to the ground. The Immelman does the opposite, giving good Gs into it and some airtime out of it. Then the final 3 inversions, including the one-of-a-kind demonic knot, have good laterals and whip up front, and nice float in the back. Oh, and I cannot forget the superb airtime you get on the speed hill early in the ride. Number 15, Pyrenees at Parque España. This ride feels like a Batman the Ride clone scaled way up. You have the size of the larger inverts with the tenacity of the original layout. This is a glorious combination. The inversions are great as you'd expect, but I also want to highlight the super tight helix that pierces through the loop. That will make your legs tingle. Number 14, Katoon at Mirabilandia. This hulking invert is very forceful. The first drop is one of the best of the genre, as it has whip at the start and some floater airtime afterwards. Then you have 6 intense inversions. The vertical loop is an automatic gray out for me. The other 5 inversions are notable for their snappiness. This coaster holds its speed well, and it's tugged a bit back from the midway, so it gives a sweet night ride. Number 13, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. This company's original Giga coaster feels an element or two short, but most of the elements it has are great. It starts with an epic first drop. Few drops offer more sustained airtime. The subsequent turn hits you with great Gs. Then, while this ride doesn't have as many hills as their other hypers, the hills that are included have very strong floater airtime. I particularly love the little speed hill mixing good airtime and laterals together. There are a few turns towards the end that are pretty forgettable, but the top moments more than make up for it. Number 12, Nemesis at Alton Towers. This iconic invert is unlike any other. What should have been a weakness with this park's strict height ordinance turned into a positive. Rather than going high, this coaster works its way down a hill and into trenches, resulting in neat visuals. This also leads to an unconventional layout. The elements aren't taking their usual order, and most importantly, they are very intense. The spiral is the craziest part, but the 4 inversions are all snappy and forceful too. This coaster is short, but the uniqueness and power make it a standout. Number 11, Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa. America's best invert is a powerhouse. All 7 inversions are excellent. Both vertical loops have strong positive Gs and cause me to start seeing gray. The Illman also hits you with positive Gs in the entry. The 0G roll offers a blend of float and whip. Then the Batwing is the best element of all. The snaps are super abrupt, and the positives in the valley try to melt your body. These are also accompanied by some nice visuals, as the second half plunges into a series of Egyptian-themed trenches to accentuate the speed. Number 10, Goliath at La Ronde. This ride may not top 200 feet, but it may have the most floater airtime of any B&M. This ride is just one camelback after another. Some may call the layout bland or unoriginal, but I will never complain about a seemingly endless barrage of airtime. It's all floater airtime, but each moment is very sustained. This one also doesn't have a mid-course brake run, just like another Goliath you'll see higher up on this list. And as a bonus, you get some stunning views of the water and Montreal's skyline going over each hill. Number 9, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is one of the more powerful B&M hypers. Every single drop in Bunny Hill on this one seems to give stronger floater airtime than usual. And the far turnaround is one of the best B&M has ever made. It is an extremely intense downwards helix that causes me to lose my vision. This one is also super well paced, and I like how it runs outside the park's main boundaries. This one has a similar issue to Diamondback though, where some valleys towards the start are quite shaky, which hurts the re-rideability. Number 8, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Considered by many to be the best B&M hyper in the US, I see the argument. The outward leg has some uber-sustained floater airtime, particularly in the first camelback. The return run is not as airtime focused though. Instead, you have some highly banked turns above the midway in water. The visuals are nice, but I would have preferred some extra airtime. The ride's first half and setting by the water are more than enough to elevate it above most of them. Number 7, Osiris at Park Asterix. Speaking of Egyptian-themed inverts, this ride has some trenches like Montu, but has a far more unique layout. It starts with an epic first drop. It looks like that of Banshee, but it offers a shocking combination of ejector airtime and laterals in the back. And this won't be the last airtime either. Some other drops offer it as well. You don't get those negative Gs in the other inverts. You also levitate out of your seat in the last 2 inversions, which are super floaty. Then the ride also offers the force you'd expect on the other elements. This includes a great sequence in the middle with a quick overbank, a very good vertical loop, and an Immelman. Number 6, Silver Star at Europa Park. I know I'm much higher on this ride than most people, but I've only experienced it running untrimmed, and this even included my summer rides a few years ago. So I got some wonderful floater airtime in the large hills in the first half. Then even this ride's detractors agree the second half is among the best of any B&M Hyper. You have some really strong airtime pops, a good helix, and a fun twist before hitting the brakes. This one doesn't have the most exciting setting, but the elements do the talking. Number 5. Candymonium at Hershey Park. America's best B&M Hyper in my opinion is one of the best paced ones. This one doesn't crawl over the camelbacks, and it holds its speed right up until the end. The hills in the first half have the strong floater airtime on par with Mako. Then the second half twists around the entrance plaza, you get some neat views, and the hills still manage to throw you out of your seat, particularly during Candy Lane when the ride tends to run untrimmed. Number 4. Orion at Kings Island. This ride has the length of Leviathan, but the elements I was less than enthused by have been designed out and replaced by more engaging maneuvers, and this one seems to show off its speed a bit more. The first drop is equally as amazing. The airtime hills featured hit just as hard. Then there are some sideways airtime moments thrown in with that giant wave turn, and the bunny hill after the helix. And in typical Kings Island fashion, this ride is set quite a ways back from the midway, and it gives an underrated night ride. Number 3. Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan. This is the best flyer they've ever built. This one takes the power and visuals the model is known for, but sustains them through the entire ride. The pretzel loop is as potent as ever, but it's made even crazier by the maneuver right before it with comparable Gs. You have this fly to live followed by a crazy dive on your back. Later in the ride you have some slower, more graceful inversions too. And to top it all off, you have several instances of airtime, particularly that steep first drop in the back. It is so bizarre getting airtime in this position, but I love it. Number 2. Shambhala at PortAventura. This is the best B&M Hyper by far. This ride is ginormous, as it's closer to a Giga coaster than the minimum threshold for a Hyper. Then you have a series of fantastic drops, particularly in the back row. Each one delivers copious amounts of floater airtime, and because of their size and the long trains, the larger drops even induce a stomach drop sensation in the back row. Along with all that airtime, you have some great positive Gs in the pullout and the far turnaround. Then you have spectacular views of the water and mountains not only on the lift hill, but for the entirety of the ride. And coming in number 1 is Fury 325 at Carowinds. This is B&M's masterpiece. It takes the great elements we love from the other Gigas, but this one has far more length. The ride starts with a world-class first drop full of airtime. Then the outward leg is a series of low bank turns showcasing the speed, while also trying to diagonally eject you from the train. The return run offers the strong and sustained floater airtime this manufacturer is known for. The treble clef and final few bunny hills are particularly potent. This is one of the most addictive coasters out there between the speed and negative Gs. So those are the top 50 Bolliger and Mabillard coasters I've personally experienced. As I mentioned at the start, there were some notable ones that had to be left off. This company has made over 120 roller coasters, and most are quite good. What are your favorite coasters from B&M? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this countdown, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.